I was just in this total state of mourning and just suspended everything until I got the results and showed that what I had was a torn meniscus, not cancer. Hola, welcome to Sana Sana podcast. I'm your host, Eileen Lopez Tomei. I'm a first-generation Cuban-American woman, breast cancer survivor, and mother of 5. I'm also a certified professional coach. Sana Sana is dedicated to you, Hispanic and Latina breast cancer survivors who've always been the strong ones and now feel lost in their identity after cancer diagnosis. Every week, I'll be sharing the foundation of my ecosystem of healing coaching process, which I use to help my clients restore trust in their bodies, release perfectionism, advocate for themselves, and live from a place of healing and peace rather than survival. Tune in to hear my real-life experiences, carving a new path for myself after remission, but helping my coaching clients carve a new path for themselves too. The house is quiet. Everyone's gone to sleep. My husband is snoring in bed next to me. The room is dark, and I'm staring up at the ceiling, thinking about my next 6-month appointment with my oncologist. And it's just a few weeks away. And that is when the what ifs start. What if this is the appointment? What if the cancer's back? What will that be like? How long will I have before I die? The catastrophizing spiral that starts slowly and builds until it's the only thing in the room begins on a night like that. And this is what fear of recurrence looks like at 11 o'clock at night, in the dark, in the quiet, that's supposed to be restful. And for many survivors, it also looks like this. It's 11 p.m. and you're watching another video about what causes breast cancer or how to prevent recurrence of breast cancer. Maybe you're looking for information. Maybe you're looking for the magic bullet that will help you prevent recurrence, the right foods, the right exercise, the right meditation. In my experience, what you're probably looking for, though, is someone to guarantee you that it won't come back. Not a lot of people talk about the fear of recurrence, honestly, or even enough. They tell you to stay positive or not to think negative thoughts, as if somehow thinking the negative thought or even verbalizing it is like an incantation that's going to bring recurrence back, which I don't believe in. But the reaction that you get when you're just trying to express your fears, right? They'll say, you've got this. You've got this. You're a fighter. And what do when people tell you this as a cancer survivor? You smile and you say, thank you. I've got this. And the fear comes anyway. Sometimes at 11 o'clock at night, while you lie in bed thinking about your upcoming appointment with your oncologist, like, what's happened to me. Sometimes at a random time when everything is going well and you're experiencing a moment of joy or moments of joy, and out of nowhere, the intrusive thought of recurrence comes through. Today, I'm going to name the fear every survivor carries and rarely says out loud. I'm going to try and tell the story of what 10 years of carrying it has taught me, including how it disguises itself, how it showed up in the worst moments for me, and what you can do with it. There's no promise that it goes away. The truth is what I'd like to share with you about what changes regarding fear of recurrence and what doesn't. If the fear of recurrence is running your life in ways you haven't been able to name yet, the work I do as a cancer survivorship coach will help you move forward from it. Book a free discovery call with me at paperbell.me/Eileen Lopez Tomei. The link is always in the show notes. Welcome to episode 17 of the podcast Sana Sana. I'm Eileen Lopez Tomei, your host and cancer survivorship coach, and I'm thrilled to be here with you again in 17 episodes in and talking about something that is a constant or pretty recurrent presence in the lives of cancer survivors. And yet we don't talk about it enough. There's almost like a superstition around it, right? Like if I don't talk about it, then it won't happen, or I won't have to worry about it. And I get that. But it shows up anyway, in my experience, whether you talk about it or not. The fear of recurrence is there, and it's going to show up anyway. So let's talk about it. And let's name it for what it is and it isn't. Fear of recurrence isn't just a fear of death, though death is part of it. And it is not irrational or excessive. It's the entirely logical response to having had your sense of control stripped away. A cancer diagnosis proves that control is an illusion. It arrives without asking for permission, without scheduling time on your calendar. It doesn't call ahead. It doesn't care about your diet, your stress levels, your plans, or your family who needs you. And fear of recurrence is the alarm that goes off every time something threatens to prove that all over again, that you don't have control over much of anything, if we're going to be honest. It's the body and the mind saying, I know what it feels like to have the floor disappear from under me, and I'm watching any sign that it might disappear again. It's hypervigilance, right? Something bad happened to us once before, and we know what that looks and feels like, and we're on the lookout for something similar to happen again. Again, not all the time, not every day. That's a different conversation, but it does happen, and it's normal. It's a normal thought or thoughts to have. So what it looks like in practice, I think what fear of recurrence looks like in practice, I think of it like as in stages. In year one, you're mostly just grateful. You're just grateful that you made it through treatment. And I think it's true whether you had really invasive treatment or not. In my experience in coaching and talking to cancer survivors, the stage one and, the stages further ahead all experience the same, like, oh, whew, thank goodness that's behind me. Whether it's a lumpectomy and radiation, or a lumpectomy and some chemo, whatever form, or all three, mastectomy, chemo, radiation, reconstruction, all of that. That first year or two after you're done with treatment, you're just like so grateful and so happy to put it behind you, and so happy to just get back to normal. I just want to get back to my life. And then year 2 to 3, I think that's where it starts, or at least in my experience, that's where it started for me. Every unusual cough, every joint pain, every pea-sized anything, you experience suddenly this hypervigilance, this body hypervigilance, like what's going on? What is this new pain? What does this mean? And zooming way ahead in year 10, which is where I am now, I'm approaching the 10th anniversary of my diagnosis. I think it comes dressed up as health consciousness. There's anxiety at doctor's appointments. I feel anxiety at doctor's appointments, worrying about whether my general health is good enough to prevent recurrence. What am I weighing? Am I exercising enough? And I think that last one in particular is kind of the fear of recurrence in disguise. At 10 years out, I don't think about recurrence every day, but I notice anxiety creeping in before appointments about my weight, about my blood work, whether I've done enough. And that is fear of recurrence. It has just learned to wear a different, maybe more sophisticated costume. I want us to pause here right now. Press pause if you need to, for a journal prompt. So pull out your journal, pull out your notebook, wherever it is that you jot down notes, and answer questions like these when I put them to you. What does fear of recurrence look like for you right now? Not the dramatic version, but the everyday version. What has it disguised itself as in your life? And consider, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, about what I mean by disguise, but often we try to turn a fear around to make it into something positive, which is good. Reframing is important and good. We just want to make sure that it's not hiding behind something seemingly positive. So, what has it disguised itself as in your life? And who will you talk to about this? Especially if you've noticed it's become a pervasive and intrusive thing in your life. So if it's really disrupting your life, your sleep, your ability to focus and concentrate, and we've talked about this in past episodes, not only is it important for you to talk to someone, trusted someone, it's probably important for you to reach out to a therapist, a counselor. Coaching can also help, but coaches are not licensed or certified mental health specialists. So take a minute or a few to think about these questions, jot them down, and just check in with yourself. See where you're at in the fear of recurrence stage of cancer survivorship. All right, we're back from journal time, and now it's story time. And I have 3 personal stories to share with you that, for me, represent the faces of fear of recurrence. So let's settle in. Story 1 is the knee bump. We're in late 2023, and I notice a bump on my left knee that had never been there before. I'm a runner, and my knees have always creaked and groaned, especially as I've gotten older, but I'd never noticed this bump, and I kept touching it. The first few days, probably the first couple of weeks, I was just touching it. I'd bend my knee, I'd examine it, I'd look at my other knee. Do I have a bump there? Maybe I missed this bump. I'm being overly dramatic, or I'm seeing things where there's nothing. But, I keep on examining it. And at some point I mention it nonchalantly to my husband. And I do this because he usually catches me starting to go down the rabbit hole before I notice it. But I'm kind of nonchalant about it, so we move on. And then I did the thing that no one, much less a cancer survivor, should do. I consulted Dr. Google. I don't remember exactly what results my search turned up, but I do remember there was enough of a possibility that this bump could be cancer that I became convinced that my cancer had come back, that it had metastasized to my bones, and that was the bump that I was feeling on my left knee, to the point that I followed the what ifs to their worst possible conclusion and made myself cry over the possibility of what recurrence could mean. And I know that for some of you, even for survivors listening to this may not sound familiar, may sound nuts, and I can't explain how quickly you can go from, look at this bump on my knee, to look at this bump on my knee. And I wish I could tell you that even as recently as 3 years ago, I did the logical and helpful thing, which is call my oncologist and tell her about it. No, instead, I waited until my next 6-month appointment, which at that point was about maybe 3 months away, maybe a little more, before telling anyone about it and about my now outsized worries of recurrence. So I didn't call the oncologist. I didn't tell Vicente except that one time. I think that I mentioned it in passing, at least not right away. As the appointment with my oncologist got closer, I may have gone into a little more detail with him, or he may have noticed that I was getting increasingly quiet. I checked with my sister, and she vaguely remembers me mentioning it to her, but I swore her to secrecy. I do remember that, and we just got spun up together, because that's what secrecy does, right? It makes the thing seem all the more ominous. And she got caught up in my own worries and fears. And so for weeks, for months, I agonized. I cried about it. I catastrophized, and mostly in private. And why did I keep quiet? I think there were 2 reasons. I didn't want to worry Vicente. So love and consideration for my husband was one of them. And I felt like telling him would make it more real, like more of a possibility. And I know now that that's not accurate, but just, I didn't even want to speak it out loud. Just like the the kind of superstitious behavior that I was calling out when I first started recording this podcast. I just didn't even want to face it. And even though I was facing it inside my head, saying it out loud, I think to me made it more real. And I didn't want to appear out of control of my own emotions. I didn't want to be that overly anxious person or that overly anxious survivor, who seemingly was back to normal and in control, who now couldn't hold herself together. I was terrified that my cancer had come back and spread to my bones. And part of what kept me silent was the fear of appearing out of control. Not just protecting my husband, but protecting my own image as the woman who has it together. Even in the face of the most terrifying thing I had ever lived through, I was still performing composure. Nothing to see here. I'm okay. I've got it all under control. And I'm smiling now and kind of laughing at myself, but with great compassion. I look back on that Eileen with great compassion. And so how does the story end? I finally, got to my oncologist appointment and then got what I call the abundance of caution response. She felt it. My oncologist felt the bump. She's like, where is it? Let me see. Oh, okay, I see it. Don't you have one on the other knee? We kind of went through the same paces that I had put myself through. And then she said, it's probably nothing, but I want to be sure. And so she ordered an MRI in an abundance of caution. And even though she said abundance of caution, I took that as evidence that it might be something, right? I didn't focus on the part where she said it's probably nothing, but let's just be extra careful and let's have an MRI. And from that moment until I got the results of the MRI, not a lot of time passed, but gosh, I wish it was just a few weeks, but I think I may have put off the MRI a little bit. Probably a month and a half went by. I was just in this total state of mourning and just suspended everything until I got the results and showed that what I had was a torn meniscus, not cancer. So let's pause for another journal prompt here. How many times have you heard the words, it's probably nothing, and felt them land as confirmation of the worst, of confirmation that it's probably everything? And what is it about reassurance that fear of recurrence cannot receive? Pause if you need to. Take a minute to jot your thoughts down in the journal, and then we'll go on to the next story. All right, welcome back. So story number 2, personal story number 2, is called The Pea-Sized Lump. At my next routine 6-month appointment with my oncologist, she felt a pea-sized lump. I was going to say at 2 o'clock, but I think it was more, at 2 o'clock on my left foob, my fake boob. And she asked if I had noticed it, and I had not. And, again, she said it's probably nothing, but we should follow up. I mean, I think lumps on your knee are one thing. Lumps, even in a reconstructed breast after you've had a bilateral mastectomy, is quite another thing. So she ordered an MRI, and the last MRI I had was right before my breast surgery, right before I had my breasts removed. And I knew what it involved, not fun. I don't think any diagnostic test, there's no diagnostic test that's fun, especially not for survivors. But breast MRI, definitely not fun. And just kind of took me back to that time when I did have cancer in my breasts and I was preparing to have, the mastectomy. And it just kind of put me in a tense state of mind. And I was a wreck all the way, again, until the results came back. And the results were that I had necrotic tissue from the fat transfer that was part of my reconstruction in that area of my left foob. So not cancer, necrotic tissue. And hopefully you see the pattern that runs through both of these stories. The doctor wants to reassure me, my oncologist wants to reassure me by saying it's probably nothing. And I can't receive her reassurance, right? I'm thinking it's probably something. If she's ordering a test, it's probably something. The waiting for results is its own kind of suffering. And then the relief that arrives and is real when the results show that it's not cancer. And then that relief gets tucked away until the next thing, the next abundance of caution test. And so what's the thread that runs through both of these stories is the performing of calm while carrying something so enormous. Because I was crying and I was a wreck, but like in the shower, quietly in my office, in the bathroom at work, here at home when everybody else was busy and I was scrolling on my phone, doom scrolling, looking for information about bumps on your knee or pea-sized lumps on your reconstructed boobs. So now story number 3 and the last story in this series is the doom scrolling year. In the previous 2 stories I shared, I was well into survivorship, but 2 years after treatment ended, the fear of recurrence had a different shape for me. I remember that I started following breast cancer survivor accounts on social media. So just a little parentheses here. I never did the breast cancer support group thing or option. I joined a couple of, volunteered for a couple of nonprofits, one of them the American Cancer Society and another one a local nonprofit. I kind of threw myself into that as a way to cope with survivorship and give back. Both of these organizations have tons of survivors as volunteers or people who have survivors, in their lives, their wife, their child, their sister, partner. So that was a way for me to create community. And it was good. It kept me busy. It helped me at the time. I felt like I was trying to transform a negative experience into something more positive. And then slowly, I turned to social media and I started joining Facebook groups, private Facebook groups for breast cancer survivors and following cancer survivor accounts on Instagram and including, accounts of women with metastatic breast cancer, which, is a whole other thing that we need to talk about in a future episode or episodes, because there's a need for advocacy generally in the breast cancer space, but most definitely and more so in the metastatic breast cancer space.
Hi, I'm a 10-year breast cancer survivor. And when I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, I hadn't had a mammogram in 4 years. I thought I could wait. I couldn't. For Latina and Hispanic women, breast cancer is the leading cause of cancer death, and we're often diagnosed later when it's harder to treat. But early detection changes everything. Today, the guidance is simple. Start mammograms at 40 and don't skip them. And while self-exams aren't a replacement, knowing your body helps you catch changes sooner. So if you've been putting it off, this is your sign. Schedule the mammogram. Know your body. Advocate for yourself, because your life is worth that appointment.
With the kale-based smoothies and the whole food recipes and the YouTube videos and statistics and gym memberships and running groups. And so, I went pretty deep down that rabbit hole for a while. And what pulled me out of it, my husband helped pull me out of it, because he noticed that I was going deep in. That's I do when I'm worried about something or something's got my full attention, I go in. I like to say I have a rich inner life. A lot happens in a year that just by looking at me, you can never tell. And so my husband helped me. I tried to notice when I was doom scrolling rather than seeking information or community. I would stop and ask myself, I would try to notice it in my body. I'm feeling something like a tightness of the chest or my heart rate or a sadness. Sometimes just I would cry because of some of the stories that I'd read on social media or videos I'd watch on YouTube. And so I would just ask myself, what am I getting out of this? What am I looking for? Am I looking for information or community or for something else? And when I notice that the accounts or the content, whatever I was consuming hurt more than they helped, that helped me in turn to step away. And so what I started to do, little by little, is curate my feed, withdraw from some of the, support or survivorship groups that I had joined through Facebook, stop watching YouTube videos or searching for YouTube videos with testimonials about this is the thing that's going to help you not just survive cancer, but outlive it. This is the thing that you need to do. Did you know about this? Did you know what happens to your cells when you've had chemo and how you can repair those cells so that you don't get cancer again? Or if you avoid this specific food or you have more of that. Yeah, I stopped all of that. And I felt, I think, a little bad initially, especially when I left the support groups, like when I withdrew from those groups or the survivorship groups. And I just realized there's a reason why I didn't join support groups at my cancer center, either during or after treatment, diagnosis, treatment, and then survivorship. Support groups are not for everyone. And I appreciate that for some women, they're a lifeline. But for me, whether they're in person or virtual, they just were not helpful. So what else? I've already told you how Vicente was my canary in a coal mine. He could usually tell when I'm going down some rabbit hole before I can. And, when he noticed a disturbance in my force, he would gently ask, what's wrong? What are you watching? What's going on? Why are you, you're getting so pessimistic, or you're acting more pessimistic? Why are you lost in your thoughts, or what's going on that you're lost in your thoughts? And usually that not only, would trigger me to kind of notice, what am I consuming? Yeah, what am I consuming? And what am I feeling when I'm consuming these things? But also it would trigger me to make an appointment with my therapist, to talk to her, to share what I was consuming, what I was thinking, the rabbit holes that these thoughts were leading me down. And then she would help me out. A few sessions, sometimes more than a few sessions, sometimes just a few sessions would help me come out of that rabbit hole. And something that I wish I had, but I didn't, is a coach. I wish that I had had a coach to help me out of any of these three rabbit holes that I found myself in, that I just shared with you. The way that I've done for my clients and the way that I can do for you. So I think this is our third and final journal prompt. So pull out your journals, your notebooks, and answer this question. What are you consuming right now that is feeding the fear rather than informing you? What would happen if you turned it off? Not forever, just for 7 days. So take a minute, jot down your thoughts on that, and I'll be right here waiting when you're done. All right, welcome back. What actually helps? So fear of recurrence is not a character flaw. It's not a failure of faith, or a failure to be grateful, or a failure to think positively. You're not being negative when fear of recurrence shows up, and it's going to show up. It is just a natural, intelligent response of a body and a mind that have been through something traumatic, disruptive, enormous, life-changing, very real. And you're allowed to have it. You're allowed to name it out loud to someone who won't need you to reassure them after you share this big truth of the fear of recurrence that you're feeling. And I want to share 3 tools that helped me and have helped some of my clients with you. And hopefully they'll help you when you find yourself maybe paralyzed with the fear of recurrence, or just starting to kind of go down a rabbit hole, starting to have those thoughts, those fearful thoughts. So the first tool is name it before you perform it. That knee bump sat inside my knee for weeks before I told my sister, much less before I told my oncologist. I didn't pick up the phone to just call her like, hey, in this upcoming appointment, I want to talk to you about this. And maybe she would have moved the appointment up, or she would have sent me for an MRI sooner. But and I didn't tell anybody this, like my husband, other people. Yeah, not Not just because I was protecting them or protecting my husband, for example, my mom, who I never told until after everything had passed. I realized, like I said, that I was protecting my image. And the first act of managing fear of recurrence is naming it out loud to one safe person. And make sure when I say safe, you want to name it to someone whose reaction you won't have to manage afterwards. Who, if you say, hey, I found this bump in my knee and I think it might be cancer, isn't going to jump into that rabbit hole with you and take you further into it, right? It just, and you don't want someone to minimize it either. A safe person is also someone who's not going to say, oh, it's nothing. Oh, Eileen, oh my gosh. Why are you thinking these thoughts? You're fine. You've been going to the doctor now for however many years since your diagnosis and you're always fine. It's nothing. It's probably arthritis. Like a safe person is someone who won't say any of those things to you, right? You just want to be able to say, I noticed something and I'm scared. That's enough. That's the whole sentence. So tool number 2 is the fast. If you are in the YouTube rabbit hole at 11 o'clock at night, or at any hour, 3 o'clock in the morning, noon during your lunch hour at work, in between calls, in between dropping off and picking up kids, if you're in that YouTube rabbit hole or that Instagram doom scroll or the Dr. Google search, and if the algorithm has learned, this is another, key observation, if the algorithm has learned to serve you like worst case scenarios, stop. Not forever, just for 7 days. I call it bájale el ruido, like turn the noise down all the way and step away from all of those things. YouTube, Google, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is for you, for 7 days. And once the 7 days are over, check in with yourself. How do you feel? Lighter? Even a little less consumed by the worry of how doing or not doing something could lead to recurrence? And then you can decide whether to extend your fast or curate your feed and go back to, social media or whatever. Or a third choice might be like a hybrid. Only gonna watch videos about exercise or about prevention, and even those are very tricky. Or I'm just gonna watch videos about kittens and positive psychology and techniques that I can use to help me cope with my very real fears and how they show up for me, right? Or just maybe you decide, that's it, I'm not gonna search for anything anymore. I'm just gonna give myself a long-term break from all that noise. And what you're looking for in that content, the videos, the search results, the social media feeds, it doesn't exist. No one can promise you that cancer won't come back. And every video or other content that does or even implies that they can prevent your cancer from coming back is feeding that illusion of control. It's not protecting you from recurrence. The one thing that you actually control, and I hope and I believe that most of you already know what I'm about to say. What is the one thing you can control? Yourself, your own thoughts, your own behavior, how you respond to what life hands you. So controlling what you eat doesn't guarantee non-recurrence. Punto. Know that. Sit with it. And that brings me to tool number 3. And tool number 3 is coming back to the present. So fear of recurrence lives in the future, and it's certainly informed by the past, right? It lives in the what ifs, and the future is one place that you and I cannot go to. The present is the only place where the unknown can't reach you, because right now, in this minute, I'm okay. And if you're listening to this podcast episode, wherever you may be, I hope and pray that you're okay in this moment, right now. It's not certainty. It's just presence. And if you remember and have tried the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding technique that I talked about in episode 14, this is exactly when to use it. Whenever that fear of recurrence rears up, go back to that. 5 things that you can see, 4 that you can touch, 3 that you can hear, 2 that you can smell, and 1 you can taste. Flip them around, whatever order. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then you're back in your body. You're back in the here and now, back in today. If you want support building practices that interrupt the spiral and help you figure out what is helpful to your survivorship in the here and now, come find me. Book a free discovery call with me at paperbell.me/Eileen Lopez Tomei. The link is in the show notes. All right, and here's where we kind of start to wrap up story time, and I share with you the honest truth about year 10. I wish I could say that the fear goes away. It doesn't. Scanxiety or blood work anxiety, which is what I experienced, is very real. Yeah, both are real. I think different cancer survivors are monitored in different ways. Those 11 p.m. or 2 a.m. middle of the night thoughts and what ifs still come. The 6-month or yearly appointment with your oncologist still brings anxiety. The unexplained bump on your knee can trigger a spiral. And I shared this a few episodes back, how my oncologist graduated me as a cancer patient back in May and told me I didn't have to come back in 6 months anymore, that I could come back in a year, and then probably after that, hopefully I would never have to come back again. And I call what I'm about to describe the graduation paradox. So for nearly 10 years, my first 3-month appointment, then my 6-month appointment was the container for the fear, right? It had a place to live and a deadline by which I could release it. It started maybe a couple of months before the appointment. It hit like its crescendo a few days before and at the appointment, got my blood work, and usually got my results that same day or maybe the day after. Everything's okay, and then I could just release it. And I wish I could tell you that after a certain number of 6-month appointments, I had enough evidence to conclude that all was going to be well and that there was no reason for me to be afraid or worry or have any anxiety. But that's not true. And in May, I let that container go. I graduated. No more 6-month appointments, no more blood work twice a year. And I realized, I feel like I'm just starting to wrap my mind around that I might be in this suspended magical thinking state right now. And that the fear might surface when I reach the 6-month mark and there's no appointment on the calendar, or it may disguise itself as something new, or it may happen when I find a bump or a lump or I feel some new and unexpected pain, or it may not show up at all. And as I was writing out the notes for this episode and going over the bullet points in my outline, I glanced at my personal calendar and realized I'd forgotten 2 important dates, one that passed already and one that's coming up. So last Friday was Save My Life Day. That's the day that I found a big lump in my right breast, one that I'd never noticed before, and that led me to call my OBGYN the next business day, first thing the next business day. And tomorrow, August 18th, is my mom's birthday, her 88th birthday. So please wish her happy birthday and lots of good health and many more years of life. She's one that deserves an entire episode in my podcast and will get one. So tomorrow's not only my mom's birthday, it is also what I call Biopsy Remembrance Day. So it's the day I had my biopsy 10 years ago, the results of which led to my diagnosis on August 22nd, 2016, which is also the day I dropped off my 3-year-old for his first day of school ever. And, this used to be a really heavy month for me. It's oh no, here comes August. And I would sometimes go through, I hate to say I have cancer memorabilia, but I do. I have a whole big Tupperware that's full of cards that people sent me, gifts that people gave me, a lot of pink ribbon and, you've got this, and encouraging things that I was given and sent, a pink boa, and just memories from that time in my life. And I would go through, those things, and I would make sure to practice gratitude. And yeah, It was just a heavy month. And here I am recording this podcast episode 17, about the fear of recurrence, while being blissfully unaware of these anniversaries that are in my midst and on my calendar. And I share this because while I'm still figuring out where the fear of recurrence lives now, without the container of my twice yearly oncologist appointments, I'm also sufficiently removed from the trauma of diagnosis and treatment and its aftermath that I don't remember what happened on what day that summer 10 years ago. I used to have those dates just like right off the top of my head. And I remember I would tell my husband, you know what day it is today? Blah, blah, blah day. Biopsy Remembrance Day, Save My Life Day. In February, it's, my mastectomy anniversary and so on. As I mentioned in my last episode, where like two seemingly opposite things can coexist, it's true here as well. These two things can coexist. The fear of recurrence and moments of normal or new normal, I should say, when your life and your memories, when your life and your memories and your thoughts and your worries don't all revolve around the fear of recurrence. Both of those things live in the same space and time continuum. And it's not that the fear disappears. What changes is that the fear stops requiring a performance. It no longer has to be swallowed or hidden or converted into a smile for someone else's comfort. You have or you find somewhere to put it down, on your partner, on your therapist, in your journal, someone to put it down with, right? Like the trusted people, the safe people. And that's the whole transformation. So before we close, I want to ask you something, and I want you to sit with it. You don't have to answer it out loud. How does your fear of recurrence show up? Not the textbook version, yours. Is it scanxiety right before an oncologist appointment? Is it blood work anxiety? Is it the bump that you noticed and haven't told anyone about yet? Is it the YouTube video at 11 o'clock at night, or the diet you think that might protect you? The doctor's appointment where you're performing, everything's fine. Just notice it and name it to yourself. That is the first step. And I'm 10 years out. I am healed and healing, and I'm still afraid. I still worry about the cancer coming back, but the difference is that fear of recurrence doesn't run the show. And that is what I want for you. Sana, sana, colita de rana. Si no sanas hoy, sanarás mañana. The fear doesn't have to go away for you to live fully, hermana. It just has to stop running the show. Hasta la próxima vez. Sana, sana. Please subscribe to Sana Sana, the podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow as well. Leave a review if you are so moved to do so. This helps the podcast to be exposed to more people and hopefully to more survivors, and makes it easier for them to find it. And if this episode named something that you've been carrying alone, share it with a survivor who needs to hear it. She's awake in the middle of the night with this thought too. If you're ready to stop performing, everything is fine, nothing to see here, come find me. Book a free discovery call at paperbell.me/Eileen Lopez Tomei. I'd love to be in the room. See you next week. Sana Sana. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Sana Sana, the show that helps you heal and restore the parts of your ecosystem that were depleted after a breast cancer diagnosis. If you liked the episode, please leave us a rating and review so we can reach more incredible survivors como tú who want to heal with us. If you want to stay connected with our growing community, check out our Instagram at Eileen Lopez Tomei Coach and share what part of the episode touched your heart today. See you next week.